Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. So today's project is going to be the Demko Knives Nano Shark. Great little knife, super strong, great for EDC, fits in pocket well. Would highly recommend this. I wish the price was a little bit lower, but overall, really great design. And I'm going to give you guys a close-up look of this thing before I start customizing it. And I really love that deep carry pocket clip. Great action is writing on bearings. Another thing I wish it had was brass caged ceramic ball bearings. You have steel cage, steel bearings, but hopefully on the next ones they upgrade it. But let's get to disassembling this thing. And really quick, want to mention that I already CNC'd the holes out. It was a little tricky to figure this out, but I'll explain more once it's finished and we're back up in the studio. But for the person who sent the material out, thank you very much. I'd love to give you a shout out, but I forgot your name. Please message me either through Instagram or comment down below just so I can thank you and spread the word on your profile so people can check out your material selection. But thank you for it, and let's get right to disassembling it and customizing it. Now that it's all finished and we're back up in the studio, we can get a closer look at the scales. We'll start off with the show side scale. And really happy with the way this thing turned out. Now you guys can see there is a difference on the flats and the beveled sections. So I decided to put the tung oil on the whole scale, as you guys saw in the customizing part of the video. I wasn't too happy with the finish on the flats, so I took it up to 600 grit. So it's not as dark, but you can still see the chatoyancy, if the camera can pick it up, in the wood. This does look a lot better in person because the camera just won't, for some reason, pick up that chatoyancy, but it has a really cool effect. And I do like that you can see the difference between the bevels and the flats. I also forgot to mention in the beginning of the video that I strengthened this wood since it's on the softer side. So I put a 1/16 inch piece of black G10, and it's really rigid. It doesn't bend or break, which is something I really needed for this build since I got rid of the steel liners. So this is what was in there before, and if I installed these, it just would have been a lot of manual milling since I don't have the CNC down just yet. But I did replace the steel liners with steel washers. These are hardened steel washers. I forgot the size, but I'll put it up on screen of what the size washers I used. I had to pocket the steel washer insert a millimeter in, or 0.9 millimeter, the thickness of the washer basically to sit flush. So you guys can see right there. So it sits flush with the G10, which the bearing's right on. So that's how I worked around that. Put my signature underneath. Can't forget that. Also want to mention, I was thinking of a different way to put the bevels, but this one just looked really good when I sketched it on there. It was definitely a big challenge. I kind of wish I didn't go this route, but it just looked so good in my mind, I had to go this route. It wasn't easy to match them, as you guys can see right here. There's kind of a bump here, so I had to make sure this bevel was just the right distance from the G10, and then matching it was the biggest challenge, but I took my time and made sure that both sides were exactly the same. And I left the scales just a little bit thicker. Not a lot thicker, but just a hair thicker, because I think it would be perfect in hand. There's spots on the scale that almost look like they're glowing. I'm gonna see if I can find a spot. Again, the camera is just not cooperating with me, but there's some highlights, like right here. It'll get dark, it'll disappear, and then at a certain angle it'll glow, almost like it's lit up. It's really interesting, and it's crazy how wood can do that, but I really like that effect. So again, really happy with the outcome on the scales. And before I forget, the standoffs, just so if you guys make scales in the future, the standoffs have different sized sections on each end. So this section is a D shape and it's larger, and this one is, there is no D shape, but it is smaller, as you can see right there. So right side larger, left side smaller. So you do have to account for it on each scale. This one is the show side. So the show side needed larger holes underneath, and the pocket clip side needed the smaller holes. So just keep that in mind. It was something I learned when I was measuring everything. So there is that. One other thing I did was I stone washed the shark lock mechanism just to match everything else. I wanted to etch and stone wash the blade, but I am going to hold off on that because I do have a plan with another set of scales I created, which are right here next to me. I made these ones out of blue Richlight. Really happy with these ones, and I kind of gave the same finish, so darkened the edges or the bevels and gave a horizontal satin finish on the flats to really make them pop and pronounce the beveled edges. And I left them thicker because, not that the Richlight is weak, but I left them thicker because it feels better in hand and it does provide strength. So really excited to use these, but I have something in mind with the etching of the blade and some other things, but that'll have to wait after SHOT Show. Once I get back from SHOT Show, I will finish customizing this with the blue rich light. But with that being said, let's get to assembling this thing. Here it is all assembled, and really pleased with it. Here is the pocket clip side. You can kind of see a little more on this side, but really like the contrast of the stone washed, basically steel finish. Really pops against that darker orangey yellow golden look. And same with the lock bar, or the shark lock, against the black G10. Same with the standoffs. And somebody said in one of the shorts, when I did a short on the finished scales, just the scales, someone said it looks like Doritos, and I can't unsee it now. So I just thought it was really funny, but I guess we can call it the Nano Dorito Shark. I don't know. Let me know down below if you guys got a name that works with Doritos. I still think it looks pretty cool. And you got these little specks from just the natural knots, or I don't even know what these are called in the wood, but just a really cool effect. And let's check it out opened up, which has great action still. But there it is. And then the pocket clip side. And I made sure with those bevels that I took most of the high spots down, or where your fingers would naturally land. And it definitely feels slim, even though I left the scales just a little bit thicker. But it feels really good in hand. This knife originally had great ergos, so really no complaints. I just happened to soften the edges of these custom scales. And the strength is still there. I spine whacked it a few times in the shop. It's not going to fail. However, I'm not saying it's stronger than steel. That is not what I'm saying. But the strength of the lockup is still very good. Obviously, if you're going to hard use this thing, it might break. But I mean, I'm going to be using this for opening packages and mainly just taking pictures. The action is still very good. Obviously, it's riding on the original bearings. So thumb flick works great. Reverse flick works great. And you can still drop it like a cold steel, or just an 80-20.5, or any Demko knife really that has the shark lock. You can pull back with your thumb and let the sharpening, or behind the sharpening choil, land on your finger without getting cut. That's one of my favorite ways to close this knife, just because it's easy to access that shark lock. Another thing I noticed with this knife, and it was on the original scales too, but if you open the blade really slow and let it lock in kind of just naturally, it tends to be a little tough to actuate the shark lock. And it doesn't do it every time, but if you guys have one of these knives, try this out. Open it slowly, and then you guys will feel that it kind of fights you a little bit. I just want to make sure that's not all the models. Maybe it's just mine, but I just found it interesting that it does that. Also, another thing I noticed when I was working on it in the shop was it felt a lot lighter. So let's see how much this thing weighs now. The original weight was 3.53 ounces. So let's see how much weight we removed. Okay, so what, 2.5 ounces. So that's basically 1 ounce of weight taken off of the original weight, which is, I think, a huge difference. So definitely a lot lighter, which I kind of like. I kind of like the weight of it because it's such a small knife originally, but it's definitely very interesting. So there is the custom Demko Knives Nano Shark. As always, you guys, thank you for watching. I really appreciate the support, and I will see you guys on the next one.